absence, and I am sitting in for Sue McDonald, which cannot be here this morning, and also Ms. Barbara Jo Cook is not going to be able to be here this morning. But I want to call the Griffin Spalding County Board of Education, the public hearing for the millage rate, the first one, to order this morning. And I would entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda. My paper agenda is not the same as what is on the screen, and so make sure that you see what is on the screen. Basically, the public comment was not on my paper agenda, and it has been added after the presentation so that there are public comments. And we have, at the moment, I think 4 signed up for public comments.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by raising your hand. That'd be 3-0. All right, we will then turn this over to Mr. Jones.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, superintendent. Good to see you this morning. Good morning, public as well. And the purpose of our meeting today, just give you a little brief background. By law, we are required to hold 3 public hearings. 2 of them can be on the same day. There is a requirement that one of them has to be after a certain time, therefore to 6 o'clock p.m. So we are going to do a 10 a.m. This morning. Then we're going to have a 4 o'clock p.m. work session, and then we're going to stay to have a 6 o'clock p.m. another public hearing. So everybody is welcome to come back then as well. And then next Wednesday, August 24th, we're going to have the 3rd public hearing, which you're also welcome to come back to at 5 o'clock p.m. here in the boardroom. And then at 5:30 p.m., we're going to have a called Board of Education meeting where the Board of Education will receive a recommendation from the superintendent to adopt a millage rate. So that's kind of our timeline for the next 7 to 8 days. So board members, I wanted to just give you a brief presentation this morning. I think it is about 20 slides, but it'll go unless there's some questions from you all. For me, we'll go through this. My objective, again, with our pace, you've heard the superintendent talk about being professional, accountable, and communicating effectively. You know, sometimes in this process, we have to, by law, and I'll talk about this in the end of my slides, we have to publish things in a newspaper, on our website, with strict language that we're not allowed to vary from. So hopefully we can articulate that a little bit differently today. Maybe in some of the press releases that were in the newspaper, we can also provide additional information for that through this presentation. If people aren't aware, we do have a distinct mission statement. Ultimately, our mission is to empower each student to graduate college and career ready. Everything we do, especially through the instructional expenditures, should be in the classroom with our end goal in mind. And then our strategic plan this year, the superintendent has brought some innovative ideas to us and worked with cabinet and all of our stakeholders to try to come back to a distinct roadmap with strategic priorities that ultimately lead to better leadership, teaching, and learning. So as a background, if you all will remember, we had about 5 budget presentations anywhere from April through June, culminating on June 22nd, 2022 with an official budget adoption. We actually had 2 public hearings prior to this, and this was in the month of May. We actually had to have 2 public hearings and then publish our tentative budget in the newspaper, which at that time our expenditures were a little bit higher, our revenue was a little bit higher, and then we got some firmed up information from Ms. Hollums, the tax commissioner, later in the process. So that had to be advertised, and then we had another public hearing in June before this June 21st meeting. So 3 public hearings for the millage rate, plus 3 public hearings on the budget. So we've had 6 opportunities potentially for people to comment and give us feedback on the budget. Some terms I know, and I worked last year to try to educate the Board of Education on this a little bit, so we'll run through these. Our ad valorem tax, or property tax, is imposed on the assessed value of property. And a lot of this is driven from the tax assessor's office with the county. They will go out and assess property and then tax individuals on 40% of that value. The value and the assessment of that value is nothing the Board of Education can control on that. You can only control the millage rate that you adopt. So, and then if you have a homestead exemption on top of that, so on a $100,000 house, you would be taxed on $40,000. Minus a homestead exemption or any other senior exemptions or anything else that might apply to your particular properties. So when you get that bill, that's what, when it says ad valorem, that's normally about 2/3 of the property tax bill will come from the Board of Education, 60%, 65%, and that's no secret. That's everywhere in Georgia. Some of the counties I worked in, they do have senior exemptions. I think this county is one of them. There's about 16 to 18 in Georgia is the only number of counties that have that exemption. So some counties have that even different than Spalding, and there's 188 school districts in Georgia, public school districts. So the certified tax digest, I'm going to run through the terms right quick. This is what Ms. Hollums takes to the states, normally due August 1st. There are extensions for that. And one of my slides at the end, I'm assuming that will be September 1st because the county would have to get their digest and all, or their millage rates approved as well. You would be the levying authority, Griffin Spalding, so you would adopt a millage rate, and then the formal process is that rate is ratified with the county commissioners at a meeting that they will call, and then that combined millage digest will go to the state. Mill talks about you have to do a division of the property tax digest. 1.9 million is the value of a mill in Spalding County. Each county has that based on the tax assessed value of their property. Millage rate, again, we're going to propose this year leaving the rate the same, which is 16.742. The assessed value of property that comes in on assessed values would show that the rollback rate could be rolled back to 14.998.
Repeat that again, Mr. Jones. We're gonna do what?
It's in another bullet. But the proposed millage rate at this point that we've advertised would be leaving the rate the same at 16.742, this would be the third year in a row that the rate has remained the same. There's no increase to the millage rate prescribed for taxpayers, but we have to advertise it as the difference in money that would have been received had the rate be rolled back to 14.988. And that may sound confusing. I'll continue to articulate that as we go through the presentation. The difference of those is 1.754 mills. I'll show you that here on another slide in just a second. Net assessed value is another term, so 1.9 billion, not M, but B, billion, is the net assessed value of property in Spalding County. So you close to $2 billion of property, and that's businesses, residential, and everything combined. We are the recommending authority, which I said before, you will adopt a rate and then have it ratified by the county commissioners. And as I said earlier, rollback rate, so we will be proposing 16.742. The difference in that is 1.754 mills, which means the assessed value increases in the county is what the difference in that rate is. If somebody builds a swimming pool, if somebody gets a building permit to build a porch, or we have a new apartment complex or a new business, the Board of Education and County Commissioners will get that new growth regardless of this discussion. This is only about assessed property increases. It's what causes the difference in the rollback millage rate and the rate that you may choose to adopt. Our current year tax digest, which is on the far right, and you'll see in the middle 1.982 billion. This is what I was referring to earlier. This is another item prescribed by law that we have to run 10 days prior to the adoption of the millage rate. So these ran, I believe it was in last week's paper. And you can see that the Board of Education, this only goes back to 2017, was continuing to roll the millage rate back. I'll have another slide in a minute. At one time in Spalding County, the rate was over 19, so it was rolled all the way back to 16.7 during that economy or those times. But again, this ran in the paper, and this does show over to the right. It's conflicting information because of the way we have to report it. This is all taxes. So if you see an increase of 15% or 4.4 million, that is on all taxes, not just the rollback rate that I said earlier. And you have to also subtract from this 2.5% for the amount that we pay the tax commissioner to collect our taxes, because we don't actually mail tax bills out ourselves. So we have to back that out. And then you also have a certain amount of uncollectible 1 to 2% where taxpayers may not have the ability to pay their taxes in that year. They may work out a payment plan with the tax commissioner, or they may default on it. I don't know the entire, where it goes from there. But so you have to factor those items in as well. This next form is just to show you what the actual form that we would send to Ms. Hollums after the superintendent signs this. I couldn't get all of it on the page. It's hard to read, but it shows you calculations of where we arrive at 11.70% on a rollback millage rate presentation. Okay. So we'll make that a little bit larger. So right here at the bottom right is what we advertised in the newspaper, 11.70%. So that 11.0% is the difference in the assessment increases between last year and this year on tax assessed value. But again, this is the form that we work. Ms. Hollums prepared this form for us to go back and proof, and this is where we get the information from. And so this middle column where it says reassessment of existing real property is what we're focusing on. So here's some trend data for the Board of Education. I had to actually take 1 year off of that. So 2012, it was also in the 19s. So there was actually 3 years of 19.470, and then the decreases of the millage rate began. So here we are in 2020 at 16.742. Last year, the board adopted the same millage rate, and then this year, that's what our recommendation is at this point. We always like to look at some surrounding county data, and a disclaimer with this is last year, because every school system has not adopted their millage rate. I talked to Tom Gray at Fayette County at 4 o'clock yesterday. They're at 19.334. They had 2 hearings yesterday. They're going to roll theirs back to 19.0. They could have went back to 17.5 or 6 or 7, but they're going to remain in the 19s. So this kind of gives you some trend data. This should have all of our RESA area, the people that in our kind of marketing area for school districts. There are a few that are lower than Spalding County, but there are many that are higher. I believe Henry County's already done their whole entire process and remaining at 20. As I educated you a little bit last year, 20 is the max for the state unless you receive legislative approval. Muskogee County kind of I'm down a little bit from that way. They've been that for years. They've got a consolidated government approach. So there's all kind of nuances that play into that. Rockdale's also a little bit higher. And you can go to the Department of Education website, and for anybody in this room or we can post this. There's a 44-page report that'll show every taxing authority, every school, county, city in every county, and you can see where all this comparative data would come from. This kind of just gives you a $100,000 property. The taxes should be, and these are estimates, the taxes should be $669.68 if it's a $100,000 value. If we roll the millage rate back, it would go to $599. Again, we're saying to leave the rate the same, so it would be the same as the prior year. This is if you receive no assessment increase. So everybody in the county, about 10 years ago, the law changed where everybody in the county, regardless of whether they received an assessment dollar increase, should receive a notice from Mr. Jerry Johnson's office down at the tax assessor. So if you receive 0 increase or you received a $50,000 assessment increase, you'll get that notice. And when those notices go out, they would have the presumed Board of Education millage rate from the prior year, because we don't know what we were going to do. This would have been in the spring. And then you have 45 days to appeal those notices. So that process has already been complete at this point. So the information, that's why we're a little later in the process sometimes, because we wait until we've got real data. On the right-hand side, it just shows you a $200,000 house, the same, and it would just keep using the math to go up proportionally. It kind of shows you what the value comparison would be. And this is just a reassessment on a $100,000 house if it got reassessed at $130,000. I just picked $100,000 because, I mean, those are kind of what most counties do to try to give you a value that you can relate to on our taxes. So it kind of shows you what that difference would be on a reassessment. So taxpayers, this was a little probably confusing last year. Even in a reassessment with a rollback, which is the right-hand side of the page, the taxes for the taxpayer are still going to go up because the value at the time, the $30,000 increase, is not completely offset with a rollback to 14.9. The next couple of slides is just to educate the public and the board on what we exactly by law put in the newspaper. So down at the bottom left, ad number 1, Tuesday, August 9th, Griffin Daily News. This is exactly what it said, other than the yellow highlights were not on it. The law says you have to print it like this. You have to call it notice of property tax increase. You have to have it no smaller than 30 square inches, and you cannot print it in the legal section of the newspaper. So all that has to happen. You also cannot say we're not raising the millage rate. you have to say it's a tax increase because of the difference of the money on reassessments that come in. Today's paper has this article. Same concept, but it has next Tuesday's meeting only, Wednesday's meeting at 5 o'clock publicized. Same exact language. We also have actually 2 press releases this year, so I want to differentiate something just a second. What I just showed you was a bylaw ad that you cannot vary from. After you do that, you can publish a press release, which most of this is some blanket template language that we received from the Georgia Department of Revenue. But you can see down at the bottom that we were trying to articulate that there would be no rate change, bottom left in bold. So I know this came out in the newspaper. We gave the newspaper some additional information and asked them to reprint an article the next day, which is this next slide. And, Mr. Adam Pugh did a really awesome job with helping us articulate this, superintendent as well, and I appreciate that. Appreciate you doing that. And so we tried to publicize something to give a little more clarity on our budget process and what our true intentions were by not raising the rate itself. So in summary, our timeline, just to repeat, we started the official adoption June 21st. We had a meeting on June 29th with tax commissioner. We had firmed update on August 1, and then we're on August 16th today, 2 hearings. The final one and the board adoption would be next Wednesday week, August 24th. The following day, I'd issue a letter to Mr. Ledbetter and his office at the county commissioners to have on their agenda whenever that meeting's going to be. And then the assumption is that Ms. Hollums would have an extension through September 1st. You may have to have an additional extension if the county's meeting was to go after that date. I do want to say this in closing. My office is open for anybody that's willing to call, email at any time. Mr. Posey, I actually came here early, and I appreciate you talking to me. He gave me an opportunity to talk with him. He had a prepared bunch of questions. You still eligible to speak if you want to, but we talked through Department of Education data. Where'd this number come from? Are you looking at general fund? Are you looking at all funds? Very educated, thought out questions. So I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to stay after this meeting, whatever I need to do as a public servant. So with that, I'll close out.
Thank you so very much. Board members, any questions at this point in time for Mr. Jones?
Question, but I do have a comment. Try to articulate and communicate the facts of what we're doing, because we do have some miscommunication in our community. We have people that won't do as this gentleman has done. Come down here and talk with people in our central office to get the facts versus being on social media of any sort to get twisted information. That just leads up to what a conversation I had with a gentleman that understands how governmental entities work. It wasn't you, Mr. Phelps, it was somebody else. But this gentleman, most people don't have a clear understanding, especially of the school system. The school system, we don't have a product to sell, to run a sale, to try to increase revenue. We depend on local, state, federal dollars. And what most people don't understand is the school system get a lot of unfunded mandates that we have to get in line with, whether they send us the money or not. And while me and this gentleman was having a conversation, we talked about cutting taxes versus tax cuts. Now people love to hear a politician running for office saying they're going to cut taxes. But a true tax cut mean that you're going to decrease or eliminate some services. And when you talk with someone that all in for cutting taxes, but you explain to them on the governmental side of the county, do you not want your grass cut? Do you not want your garbage picked up? Or do you not want the garbage facilities available? Things such as that. On the school system side, it's hard for us to maintain, and I applaud Mr. Jones and his department for us keeping our millage rate the same or rolling it back. But it's hard for us to deliver the services. We don't just come up with these things. These are things that we are mandated to do. And they come down from the federal level to the state level, then it hits us at the local level. And I said all that to say this. When we talk about cutting taxes, we have to think about the services that we're offering our scholars. You know, we complain about our scholars, but we've got to do all we can to help our scholars, because these are the young men and women that are going to be taking care of us, running things when we are either at our homes, in a nursing home, or assisted living homes. And we want these people to be well versed in making good quality decisions. So I just felt like communicating that to the general public who may be watching online, and these people that have taken their time to come and visit us this morning. We're just trying to put out a good quality product, because it's not about right now, it's about 10, 15 years from now. What are these young people going to do? How they're going to lead? How they're going to take care of this community? So I thank you for listening, but I just wanted to communicate that and not take it back home with me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I would like to piggyback on that just a little bit and let those that are here in the room know, and some of you may already, and those that are watching online. In 2016, we did a curriculum audit of our system. And so basically that was on a national level, company that came in and said, these are the things that you need to do in order to change your system and to better your system. So there was 10 major recommendations that were given. Unfortunately, 19 years prior to that, a curriculum audit had been done, and the findings from the 19-year-old curriculum audit and the 2016 curriculum audit were the same things that needed to be changed. So since 2016, our board, the board that has been here, it's been different ones at different times, has worked hard, and I think we're at about 90%, is that pretty close to the number, of those changes being made. So whether it was increases in some things at central office that needed to happen, if there was some things at the local school level that needed to happen, we are working diligently to allow the professionals to share, that have shared with us, these are the things that need to change in order for your for your system to change. I believe we are beginning to see some of the benefits of those changes that have been made. So just giving you additional information that this board looks at those recommendations that are coming, not just from the local level, but from the state and the national level, as importance to making our system the best that it can be. If there are no other comments, we will move then into our public comment section. And first up, we have Ms. Amanda Slade. If you will come to the microphone over here and just state your name and address. And it's been a little while since I've seen you. It's good to see you. And I usually have a paper that I can read that kind of goes over that, but you're addressing us today. I believe our time frame was about 3 minutes, and so
I probably won't take that long.
that's fine.
My name is Amanda Slade. I live at 101 County Line Road. I've been a minister in this town for years, working with education, Spalding Collaborative. So I say that to say I definitely care about the children in our community, but I care about them in all of our communities. And one of the problems that we have is that y'all aren't an independent thing that just is doing one thing. Like the county, as Mr. Jones said, the county, everyone has a piece of the pie. And in a year when assessments have already gone up, when I'm watching homes that originally sold for $200,000, then sold for $125,000, now they're selling for $300,000, that's how you get that 15% magic number that doesn't mean anything, because that was a weird thing to say. That those increases have to cover, because people can't buy groceries. So yeah, you say it's $70, but if their assessment, now it's $210 if it's a $300,000 home. They can't afford groceries. That's stressful on the parents. That impacts the kids. And that really matters. And it's one of those things where it feels like just taking. I've been waiting on graduation rates to look like they look. I need proficiencies to look that way as well before I'm like, yeah, let me give you more money. And those are hard things. So I actually would prefer if you roll back the millage rate. And that was my recommendation today. Because we all have to work within budgets. And sometimes our budget has to tighten because situations change. And I think that would be like my only comment about it, is work within your budget, bring it down to where we actually are. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Slade. Next, we have Ms. Kay Wimpy.
Hi, I'm Kay Wimpy, and I live at 164 South Walker's Mill Road. I am going to cement what Ms. Slade just said. Families are on a budget, and I do appreciate, I like the music. I do appreciate the discussion that you're keeping the millage rate where it's at. I think the newspaper and what came out is everybody saw, all right, our assessments just went up 40 and 50,000, so you're getting extra money there, and then on top, you want 11% more. So I do think how that got put out, whether it's the state says you got to call it a millage rate or a tax increase or whatever, that was very disconcerting for all of this community.
Absolutely.
But I do think if we can roll this millage rate back, we need to, because A, you've got the increase with the assessment amount. We've had some good growth in Spalding County with some people building some very nice homes and all that, so we have that additional growth within this county that we haven't had in years, because people are like, I'm not coming to Spalding because of the school system and all that. So it was nice to see growth within this community. But there are, within this community, there are people struggling within that budget. So, and I know that $100,000 is nice to put up there, but most people's homes are assessing for $200,000 and more. So you're looking at $240 more each month. And like you say, then the county wants their pie, part of the pie, which is, that's another assessment. People's incomes are not going up to meet the demands of everybody's tax assessments. Nobody's getting 11% raise. Some people have gone years without any raise, and some people are struggling just to find a job. So I think that needs to be taken into account when we are trying to look at the tax for this community. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Wimpy. Next, we have Audra Lester.
I'm Audra Lester, and I live on 791 Lakeside Road. I have been in Spalding County for 22 years, and honestly, I can't keep having my property taxes and everything else go up at this point, because, I mean, I'm going to be paying already $5,000 a year for my property taxes alone, and I can't do no more. Everyone is struggling, and I understand that, and the thing is, there's no pay increase for anybody. The economy is not looking good right now for us. What's going to happen when everybody's buying these houses, paying more money to buy these houses, and then what's going to happen when this economy just collapses? I mean, it's not looking good for this country right now. So, all right, so if I have a house over $300,000 and recession hits, okay? Eventually, when the property taxes are due again, my house is going to go down and probably not worth as much, okay? But my taxes won't. And this is what gets me upset, because I'm tired of paying all this money out for what? I mean, this is just ridiculous. I'm just not happy with all this. Why isn't this something that can be voted from on the ballot in November? Why can't people decide about this decision? I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm just, you know.
Thank you, Ms. Lester. And then fourth, we have Mr. Thatchery Emery.
My name is Thatcher Emery. I live at 851 North Pomona Road in North Griffin. I had a couple of questions that were somewhat of a concern. I didn't see anything. I don't know what the Georgia or what Griffin receives in funding from the Georgia Lottery. I haven't heard a word about how much money is generated by that, other than the commercials on TV that said billions are being given back to the school systems. My property tax assessment this year, I experienced a 42% increase in my property tax and value of my property. Now, at this rate, I don't know how many more hits like this I'm going to be able to take before I'm going to have to look at selling and downsizing and buying a smaller property, because at a tax bill of $8,500 a year, I don't care who you are, that's a $2,500 increase over last year. So, and I've been in Spalding County about 7 years, and every year seems like I'm getting dinged a little more and a little more. And I'm wondering why some safeguards aren't being put in place so that we don't get hit with a whatever y'all feel like tax increase the next year. Why can't, when you buy a house, you've got an assessed value. Why can't it stay that way until you sell the property and let the new owner take the increase in the property value and you get new revenue? You wouldn't have so many aggravated homeowners out here. I just think that, and I just recently retired in January, and now after getting my assessment, I probably shouldn't have done that. So other counties, as was mentioned earlier, give exemptions for retirees once they reach retirement age from the school tax. I don't understand why Spalding County can't do something similar, reduce it to half, 25%, or something, take some of the tax burden off of the homeowner. Every time it looks like the county needs money, the only target is homeowners. So at their will, we come in, we assess them some more money. It's kind of like a, you know, when I run out of money, guess what? I stop spending. So there's something needs to be done, or you're going to have a lot more aggravated people out here talking to you. And how are you going to keep your houses at 20, 30% increases in taxes every year? I don't know. But I wish you guys would look at some alternatives instead of hammering the homeowner every time something comes around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emery. And I would like to say thank you very much for everyone that has come out today. Is there anyone else that didn't sign up that was wanting to make a public comment? I'm going to give you an opportunity to sign up at this time. But your involvement is huge for us. We're appreciative of that. And we take into consideration everything that's being said today. And so, any other comments from the other board members?
Yeah, I wouldn't, don't want that gentleman to leave that just spoke. There is a senior citizen tax cut credit. You have to sign up for it at the tax office. I don't want you to leave because my mom and grandmother stayed on me like, you know, white on rice for us to do something for the seniors. So you have to ask about that at the tax assessor's office. But other than that, I hope that everyone understand the position we are in as school board member. We don't do the property assessments, whatever. We take whatever the county does, and the only thing that we control is our millage rate. We don't have anything else to do with property value or reassessment. So I thank y'all for coming, and for anyone that's on the Zoom that is tuned in to us, we thank you as well, and make sure you spread this information to those, your neighbors, your friends, because we want people to have the facts about their millage rate and taxes as far as the school system is concerned, because we can't control what the city or the county does. Thank you.
All right. Do we have anything for executive session? Okay, with that being said, I would entertain a motion then to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. And we will be back for an executive session at 3 o'clock meeting, and then our 4 o'clock workshop, and then the 6 o'clock